Well, hello everyone. This is Lynn Hamilton, your lead instructor here at Samson Properties, with another fun edition of Business Skill Builders. So, in today's session, we're going to have a little bit of fun. I decided since this was a fun topic, we were going to make it even a little more fun. And I've created a cute, whimsical kind of handout, which is normally not the norm that we go. So, we're going to have some fun with this. So, today in Death by Paper Cut, File Retention Management for Real Estate Agents, we're going to have a few giggles along the way, and I hope you enjoy the, the fun icon up here while we're doing this. All right, so in today's class, we're going to cover why are we keeping all this stuff, the retention rules state by state, your CYA file, your best protection, what does not belong in a file, organize the chaos, systems that work, file name and that future you will thank you for, the 10-minute file closeout, and your personal file retention plan. So let's go ahead and jump right on in. So I don't know about you, but if you look around your desk or your workspace, are there piles and piles and piles of paperwork that you're going, what do I do with this? Well, hopefully we're going to have a fun answer for you today. Start off with every state, including the state of confusion, has some regulations and some guidelines for what needs to be kept and for how long. So, based off a little search that I did, here's a general rule of thumb as of right now of this recording. Now, always double check with the state that you are in to make sure that it is still accurate and current. Check with your broker or brokerage if you need to. And of course, if we're talking about tax records, check with the IRS or a Google search online should tell you how long, or your accountant should be able to tell you how long to keep them. Now, I always did above and beyond. So if it said I needed to keep them for 3 years or 5 years, I kept them a 1 or 2 years, way past that, and sometimes even longer than that. So the general rule is, and again, this is not carved in stone, but double check it. Virginia, it's 3 years. Maryland, it's 5. Washington, D.C. is 3. West Virginia is 5. And Pennsylvania is 3. Certain records and disclosures are specific requirements. Make sure you check with the local authority for whatever state you're in, that you're keeping them for the adequate amount of time. And again, I always pushed it out for an extra year or 2 or 3 on top of that. All right, so let's start with the couple of reasons. Why are we keeping all this stuff to start with? Most agents don't have a file system. We have a filing situation. We don't know. There's papers all over the desk. They're in our car. There are files on the laptop, downloads on our phone, attachments buried in emails, screenshots in photos somewhere, and documents in a brokerage transaction filing system, a digital system. So somewhere in the midst of all that is the one file or the one picture that you need and you cannot find. That's never a good thing. So again, we've talked about 4 reasons why we need to keep records. First off, for legal or regulatory reasons. Second, the broker requirements. Third, tax or business requirements for business receipts, taxes, mileage, anything that you would use on your tax records as a tax write-off. And then the fourth one is basically a CYA, cover your asset. Sometimes the most valuable document in your file isn't required by regulation, but the email will state per our conversation. The sad truth is, and I've mentioned this before, that anybody can file a complaint against you for anything at any time. So hopefully it never comes, but if that day does come, it's better to have stuff in place so that you can pull it versus going into meltdown and panic, which you'll probably do anyway. All right. So on our roster here, number 3 is retention rules by state. We've already briefly talked about that. Again, this is not legal advice. This is not tax advice. This is a general rule of thumb. Check your state, check it thoroughly for exactly how long you need to be keeping them. When in doubt, do not delete. Keep it a year or 2 longer. The CYA file, your best protection. What are things that should be kept in just in case? Mainly communication, because any of the contract files are signed and by all parties. They're legally a part of the file transaction. But where it gets into complications is the phone call. Oh, I don't remember. I can't recall. So by having a written record of it, that will remain because the phone calls will disappear, the memory will fade or change, but the written documentation or the written recording of communications or decision or whatever, that can last forever. What does not belong in a file? Obviously, duplicates, blank forms, outdated drafts, multiple downloads of copies of the same thing, random screenshots, unnecessary personal information, documents that belong to another transaction. We've seen that before, and temporary notes that should be properly documented elsewhere. You want to make sure too that if you have had a conversation with your client, one of the best CYA policies is to go in and say in an email, per our conversation on, or per our phone conversation, or when we chatted in person on da 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 date, this is what we agreed on. Boom, 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 bing, bong. Now you've got your documentation and you're good. You want to somehow figure out how you can best organize this chaos. One transaction equals one, or one file equals one transaction. So do not have multiple transaction information into one file folder. Right now, you can buy the cutest file folders ever. You can get them at the local stores. You can go to your favorite online shopping spot and order them. Some that I like that I just recently came across, they're plastic. It has a little tab on them. They're sealed on two sides. So two sides are open and you can slide stuff in and it just kind of grabs it and hold it. Now, it'll hold 5 to 10 pieces of paper. So if you're just kind of getting started with a potential client, start there. And then when you're ready to move it up to a file folder, move it up to a file folder. Now, way back in the day, our files were not all digital. They were obviously all paper. We had contract files. And one of the greatest things I was ever taught to do is to get those big, large rubber bands. And those big, large rubber bands, you can buy them at any office supply store. You will get them and you'll have them for the rest of your life. But what we were taught and learned to do is one folder at a time. You took the rubber band off, opened the folder, did whatever you needed to do, folded it back up again and slide the rubber band back over it. Boom, it was secure. You do not want to hear what comes flying out of the mouth of an agent when a stack of 3 or 4 file folders that they were pulling out of their car or trying to get out of the office fell and everything went everywhere. It was funny, but it was not pretty. So you want to make sure that if you're traveling with papers, you keep them nice, tidy, secured, and together. Oftentimes, too, you have the 2-hole punch at the top of them. You can just punch them, put them in. That was another great automatic habit that we learned and created. All right, so obviously the question goes, what goes into a transaction file? That may vary from state to state or brokerage to brokerage, but basically any and all of the legal documents from the buyer-broker agreement to the listing agreement to disclosures to contracts addendums to counteroffers, any receipts of earnest money deposit, property disclosure, lead-based paint, HOA docs, repairs, requests for repairs, financing information, title commitment, settlement, exclusive releases, cancellations, final walkthroughs, leases or property management, if that applies to that particular transaction, then any important correspondence or notes. Ask yourself, does this document help tell the story of the transaction? Because if you've got to recap the story 1 or 2 years later, your brain is good. It's not that good. Our brains are for processing, not for storage. So the better your files are, the better it will be if you ever have to pull them and retrieve them. All right, so the CYA documents, what do those include? When someone says, you never told me that, your CYA file will answer the question, yes, I did. So email communications and conversations, text messages about showing receipts, repairs, deadlines, changes, or anything along that line. Notes. So if you were on a phone call and we're taking notes, believe it or not, those should be included in your CYA file as well. Again, anything that could help tell the story of what happened and when is going to be a valuable part of that transaction. Now, you can, when it comes to paperwork, you can also scan it and digitally keep it either in your email backup or wherever your digital file is. A lot of companies like Samson, of course, has SkySlope or a similar type format that everything is kept online, and you can add documents to that as well. Now, let me go ahead and share with you a quick, just an extra thought there. If you have, obviously, we all communicate by email. One of the things you want to do is go into your email footprint. If you do not know how to do this, you can Google it, or I have some instructions on using Outlook. But if you're using email or Gmail, Yahoo, one of the other platforms, you can Google it and find out how do I create file folders within my email of Gmail, of Yahoo, or whatever footprint you're using. What I recommend is when you start a transaction, create a new folder that is labeled the year and the client's last name or first name, last name. Then any communication that you go back and forth on, when you are done with the communication, drop it back over into that file folder in your email account. Then when that transaction is completed, you can push it up into an archive folder for that year. So it's not all over your desktop. It's not all over your inbox. It's neatly kept and put where it belongs. There's a place for it. Make sure that is being put where it belongs. When it comes to emails and text messages, yes, they do count. I know a lot of people do not realize that those could be requested to be brought in. So again, it's better to get into the habit of saving them from the beginning. Also, the magic follow-up email. When you are done with the transaction, again, a great thing to do is to let the consumer know that you are wrapping down the file. You are completing and putting all the documentation that and communications that went with that file or with that transaction into a file so that you've got them just in case. It is always a great general rule of thumb when you need to email someone during the transaction in terms of follow-up. Just to recap our conversation today, what we decided or what we discussed, what we decided, and then what will happen next. That will be the best format for keeping your communications easy and easy to track and trace if you need them. All right, so here's the next one. To keep, to maybe keep, depends, or to toss, you decide. So what definitely you need to keep is anything that is signed, that is part of the legal documents of the transaction, phone call, records, yada, 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 all that goes into your file. The stuff that's a maybe, if it's a handwritten note on a Post-it note or a scratch paper or a draft of something that you wrote that was later turned into the legal document and signed by the client, those probably can be gotten rid of. Then the toss it is duplicates, blank forms, outdated marketing pieces, or the draft of them sometimes, random downloads not related to the transaction, screenshots that aren't related to that transaction. Again, junk email, spam. You don't need to keep those, you can toss them. But stop and ask, does this help document, tell, and to tell the story of the transaction? if I ever had to go back and remember this, A, could I remember it? And could I remember and recall the date, the time, and the details? All right. So that's a good general rule of thumb. Now I'm going to throw out an extra bonus here. When you have paperwork that has a client's name, any of their personal information, phone numbers, emails, address, God forbid anything with a bank account information on it or social security number on it, those are never, ever, ever to go in the trash. They are to be either get one of those ink rollers that you can roll over and white out that information and put it into a shredder, or a document shredder is always the safest and best way to handle that. All right, and remember that every state may have minimals, time frames in which things need to be kept. It is the state, the brokerage policy, and any other legal arena will make the determination of what needs to be kept and what needs to be disposed of and when. All right. And yes, in this business, we have a lot of files and a lot of paperwork, which is why I decided to have some fun and call it death by paper cut. Because you know good and well that if you have ever cut your finger on paper, you know how that stings, and you usually have a tendency to say bad words. All right. What you want to do too is take a look at your computer and say, do I have a simple filing system in place? Do I have a folder for these transactions? Do I have a folder for property photos? Or are they just scattered all over my desktop? Put them into folders. That is going to make your life a whole lot easier. Electronic files become your best friend. Go digital, go safe, and go smart. Again, anything that can be scanned and put into a digital format that you can save digitally is always a good scenario to run with as well. Get your inbox of your email under control. Lately, I have been just flabbergasted at how many agents have inboxes that are out of control. We recently did a couple of fun recorded sessions of inbox intervention, how to go in, start deleting, start opting out, and cleaning up that inbox. If you need those tips, let me know and I'll show you where you can find them. When you close out a file, here was my general rule of thumb. I did not either deposit the check or start spending the check, now that they're all done digitally most of the time. I never started spending any of the money that I earned until my files were signed, sealed, I's dotted, T's crossed, and delivered, as I like to say. I made sure the closeout that everything was in there. I made sure that I had sent the handwritten thank you notes to everyone involved. There's usually only 4 or 5 of them that need to go out, and it only takes a minute to do so. I made sure that also I went into my CRM and updated. I used this home inspector on this transaction, and I'd have obviously the date, but the property and any other notes I needed. So that way, if I needed to come back and say, hey, thanks again for helping me with this transaction, or we've done X number of transactions together, whatever, we had it. And again, your CRM becomes your best friend as well. So I made sure that, again, I went through that everything was where it belonged. My email was cleaned up. My paperwork was cleaned up, that everything was secured and locked in there. I had it, what downloaded needed to be downloaded. Thank you notes were written. And then I updated the CRM and made sure that everything was in place. Now the file is complete. So make sure that you're taking time in your busy schedule as well to close down those transactions and not leave stuff hanging. Oh, I'll get to it later, because later never comes. All right. Next on our checklist is protect it. Backup and security matters. You want to make sure that your documentation has some sort of backup or cloud storage. Anybody that's been around for a while remembers when computers would then crash or something would happen and you would lose everything. That was never a good idea, and that was never a good thing. I'm sure it probably caused a few people some heart palpitations. One crash or hack can be career threatening. because they can get in and it happens more often than you think. So make sure that you've got security and backup on them. If you are using paper files or you still have some stuff in paper files, again, make sure they're neat and tidy, just so that if you ever need them, you can pull them. And that goes without saying. All right, so that should be some general tips to help you get some of your paperwork and files into organization. So let's have a quick minute here. I'm going to give you a quiz. On a scale of 1 to 5, how would you currently rate your digital filing system on your computer? And how would you rate your email account in terms of being tidy, neat, and ready to go? My next question for you is, I want you to answer this. My biggest paper cut is or comes from my emails, my text messages, the paper, downloads, file names, closing files, knowing what to keep, and anything everywhere. All right, so where's your paper cut at? What are the next 3 things that you want to work on getting fixed? 1 this week, 1 next week, and 1 the following week after that. Then ask yourself, what is your promise to yourself? I pledge to protect myself, my clients, and my business by making sure my paperwork is in place, making sure my emails are in place. What is it that you want to pledge to keep in check for your clients and your business? And then the 10-minute challenge. Pick 1 transaction that may be still sitting on your desk, and then ask yourself, can I organize it in 10 minutes and make it better than what it is right now? Are the contracts there? Are the inspections there? Are the reports in there? Are the important documents in there? Are my CYA information in there of emails or anything else? And there you go. And there you have it. So clean up the files, clear your mind, and be a happy or happier agent. Before you hit delete, always ask, is it required? Does my broker require it? Could it protect me? And could I need it later? If it does, do not hit delete yet. It is better to keep it and not need it than it is to need it and not have it. And as my final closing thoughts, I want to reassure you that no agents were harmed by paper cuts during this class. I hope that you had a good time with it. I had fun sharing this with you. Go clean up your stuff. And with that, my friends, class is over. It's time for recess, and I'll see you in the next class. Make sure if you watch this on video, you give it a thumbs up and follow along and subscribe so that you can get notified the next time we have a class in session. All right, my friends, go be wonderful, go be awesome, and I'll see you in the next class. Bye for now.